Want to get started?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, welcome. I'm Christine. I don't think I know your name.
Yeah.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
And I know you from last time. So welcome to our last session titled The Mindful Leader. So we're going to explore what makes for mindful leadership, the distinct qualities and characteristics that create a sense that one is in the presence of a mindful leader. But before we do that, I wanted to share a story about being in the present, a very recent story about being in the presence of a mindful leader. Back in September, I did a training on resilience at Johns Hopkins Medicine, and they had devoted an entire day to putting many of their employees through this workshop on resilience. And at the very start of the day, their executive leader came in. His name was Steve, and he did the welcome and introduction to the day. But he brought this high stool over into the center of the room, and he sat on the stool. And before he sort of launched into my introduction and what the day was going to be like, he told this very personal story about how grateful he was that all of his team had been so generous with their time and with their resources in supporting him and his wife, Carol, who had advanced stage breast cancer. So he told this really compelling story about their journey together, you know, that a lot about his history with her. And not a lot of people knew Carol. They knew of Carol, but they didn't know Carol. There was a tremendous amount of humility in this opening to this retreat. I was asked to stay for that part of the meeting so that I could get a sense of what their culture was like. He then went on to thank everyone, had enormous gratitude, and one of the things that he said was that he felt that he was remiss in being as generous and as grateful and as sort of like extending kindness to employees when he would hear through the grapevine that they were dealing with similar issues and that was something that he wanted to change. So after he made that self-disclosure, he launched into this very compelling vision for what the next year was going to look like. So at the break, I had said to several of the retreat participants, "You are so fortunate to have a leader like this." And they said, "We didn't recognize that man." That this had been the first time that he had presented himself as someone with great humility and as someone with tremendous gratitude, and that they felt that in what they heard, that he was launching into an entirely different level of his own leadership. And they were astounded that he actually stayed the entire day for the resiliency training. So Steve is an incredible example of what we call, and what the literature now is calling, the mindful leader. So what does the mindful leader look like? It's first and foremost minding our own perspective on what leadership is, and this understanding that leadership is no longer a series of doings as a way of getting to a particular goal or outcome. Leadership is communication, and leadership is a form of relating. And to lead from any other stance is to put yourself in a position where you're going to lead reactively, unconsciously, just not awake, and ineffectively. It's no longer effective to lead from a place of task and getting people to do what you want them to do.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. Leadership is communication. Leadership is relationship. And to lead from any other stance is going to lead reactively, unconsciously, and ineffectively. So we might say then that leadership in the 21st century is now comprised of acts of communication and relationship building. And that's really the call for 21st century leaders, is to operate from this perspective. Yes, always stop me whenever you have anything.
Is this what people used to refer to even 5 years ago as a quiet leader?
Not necessarily, but a quiet leader, I know what you're talking about. A quiet leader is the leader, kind of like the example that they often use for that is Nelson Mandela, who would lead from behind. So you've got all of these people that you're leading who are out in front, and they think, that they're succeeding and accomplishing. All the while, there is this quiet force and presence behind them that's kind of shepherding them forward. That's part of it. And that's part of leading from a place of tremendous humility and leading from a place where you yourself as the leader are not attached to recognition and you're not attached to having that hierarchy in terms of status. It's a very different way to lead. Yeah, that's what you're referring to, leading from behind. So some of the data, recent data to support what we call mindful leadership or leadership that is associated with the sense of presence. So Bain & Company, 2017, they came up with what they call 33 leadership traits that will pretty much guarantee that you will be an encouraging, inspiring, transformative leader. So of the 33 traits, and you can look up what they are on your own time, of the 33 traits, including, can you create compelling objectives to get people motivated, inspired? Can you express your ideas clearly? And can you be receptive to input or critique from those you're leading? The ability to be mindfully present. In the literature, this is referred to as centeredness. The ability to be mindfully present is the most essential of the 33 leadership traits for the new face of leadership. There is a direct correlation between a leader's mindfulness and the well-being and the performance of those they lead. In other words, the more a leader is present with their people, the better they will perform. And this comes from a 2014 white paper on mindfulness and leadership. So I love this graphic. This also comes from Bain & Company in the 2017. This is kind of a model of transformational mindful leadership where you see centeredness is at the center. And developing your inner resources so that you can be centered is at the core of mindful leadership. Also included is strong ability to connect with others, setting the tone, which means do you lead in such a way that the culture you're creating is aligned with the things that really matter to you and matter to those you're leading. Setting the tone is all about creating a certain kind of corporate climate where employees will thrive, not just survive, they will thrive. And that comes from this center. And then, of course, the actual act of leading a team. But again, their contribution is really isolating at the core of mindful. You want to think mindful leadership, transformational leadership, inspired leadership at the core is rooted in having the inner resources to be centered. Okay? So if you want to take a break and fill your plate, this is a good time to do it. Yeah.
Fascinating. This is really good.
So I thought it was interesting, on a side note, back to the study on the 33 top traits that make for mindful transformational leadership. So 91% of leaders who fall in that category of being an inspired transformational leader, the top 3 traits that they possessed was a high capacity for vision for the organization, vision for the team, flexibility, the ability at a moment's notice when something isn't going right, the ability to change course and to bring others along with them, and openness. 82% of top leaders that fall in the category of a mindful transformational leader had a strong capacity for balance, strong capacity for direction, this sense of where we're headed, and a very strong capacity for what I call lifting, meaning they were able to communicate with team members in such a way that in each encounter, they lifted the team member and they pushed them forward, as opposed to sabotaging them, keeping them stuck, or putting them in a regressive state. So when we talk about what it means to communicate interpersonally in a lifting manner, that's really what it's about, is the conversation that you and I are having right now. It doesn't even matter what the conversation is about. Does it leave you better for having had the conversation in the first place? Does it lift? Does it inspire? As opposed to diminish, regress, put you in a place where, I'm sabotaging your progress. So just a quick glimpse into what does the mindful leader actually look like. He or she would have these qualities. These qualities are very much aligned with what it means to be emotionally intelligent. So we want to say that a mindful leader is going to have a moderate to high degree of emotional intelligence. So they are not only self-aware, they are aware of others. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Is it spicy?
It's just my cough.
So when we talk about the self-awareness and other awareness, what you want to think about is, I'm not just aware of the way that I'm thinking and the way that I'm feeling in any given moment. I'm highly aware of how I'm thinking, feeling, how I'm making decisions, and the impact that all of that is having on you. So the self-aware individual knows that the way that my very being, my very presence has an impact on those who are around me. And you've all had experiences with someone who says or does something, and you think to yourself, do you have any idea about the impact of what you just said, or that decision and the way that it impacted other people, right? So that's what it means to be self and other aware. They have a strong capacity for self-management and relational management. Meaning I can manage myself and my emotion very well. I know how to conduct myself emotionally as I move through my life, but I also have a strong capacity to manage my relationships, whether they're personal or professional. They are able to engage in conscious and very intentional communication. So in other words, I have a sense that not only what I'm saying, but how I'm saying it has an impact, a certain kind of impact on those I'm communicating with. Conscious communication is also very intentional. I don't waste my words. A strong sense of presence, as we already discussed. A relentless thirst for growth. A thirst to know more, to do better. This understanding that as I grow and improve as a human being, I grow and I improve as a leader. They are intricately connected. And again, the ability to lift others in my communication and a willingness to do that. These are the qualities that make for someone who would fall under the category of a mindful, transformational leader. Mm-hmm. Of course, yeah. Of course. Yeah, that's a day-long retreat right there. How do you get there? But I think it's good to know I created this list based on the work that I've done with leaders, but also this is kind of a summarization of all of the reading, all of the literature that's out there. I just wanted to highlight what are the top characteristics that make for the mindful leader. So if I were to just really drill down on three things, three top themes, if you wanted to cultivate your own growth as a mindful leader, we want to think about your capacity to self-lead. We're going to work on that in a second. Your capacity to self-lead, your ability and your investment in what we call a growth mindset, and the degree to which you have your own leadership philosophy. Most leaders, when you talk with them about what is your leadership philosophy, have no idea what their leadership philosophy is. They haven't thought about it. So cultivating as a leader your own sense of what is my philosophy? Where do I lead from? These would be my top 3 qualities of the mindful leader. This is a leader who leads from the inside out. Okay? Now there's lots, I could spend an entire day talking with you about what it means to practice self-leadership, but I wanted to give you a quick exercise in kind of step 1 of that process. And the question that guides Self-Leadership 101 is, how well are you doing at leading and managing your own life? That's where you start. When we look at leaders who are highly ineffective, who are not exhibiting moderate to high levels of emotional intelligence, there is a good indicator that their own personal lives are in shambles. So this is where we begin when we want to become very conscious and mindful as a leader. So I wanted to introduce you to this tool called the Wheel of Life. And this is where you'll need your pen. I'm going to move through it with you, so just take your time. You don't have to do anything with it right now, because I want to talk with you about the categories, and then we'll see what it looks like. So there are a lot of different ways that you can work on the Wheel of Life. This is a very general format. Wheel of Life inventory is interesting. What I will want you to do is to put the date on this, because you may want to check in again in 6 months. This is something I try to do 4 times per year. And I can also tell you where you can get copies of this, because it's interesting to visit this. So you'll see that around the wheel there are these various topics. I'm going to go through and just tell you what they mean at a deeper level, and then we're going to rank them, okay? All right, family and friends really is speaking to the degree to which you feel socially supported. You know, and you want to answer in this now moment, at this time in your life, in terms of your family and your friendships. On a scale from 1 to 10, do I feel emotionally supported? You might be going through something right now where you feel adrift and abandoned. And so maybe you'd rank yourself at a 3. Maybe you'd rank yourself at a 10. But you can see the numbers here. Do you see them? So what you want to do is you want to draw a line. Let's say that I ranked myself at a 5. I would take my pen right here, family and friends, and just draw along the curve from just in this little slice. Okay? So go ahead and do that. So I'm just going to, let's say I was a 5. I was family and friends. 5 is right here. I'm just going to draw line to line, just like a little, you see? That's okay. This is so family and friends, if that's what your number is. So you just want to go from here to here. So you'll be redoing those. Okay. You want another one? We have lots.
Sure.
Significant other, romance. This has everything to do with intimacy. It's interesting when I do the Wheel of Life with university students, many of them will say, I'm at a 10 in that domain because I'm not in a relationship and I'm thrilled about it, right? So whether you're in a relationship or not in a relationship, you cannot be in a relationship but longing for one. You can be in a relationship and be incredibly dissatisfied. We know that there is a very strong correlation between our mental and emotional health and the strength of intimate, close bonds. So really be honest with yourself about where you would rank yourself in this now moment.
This is probably obvious, but so 10 would be the highest, the most, and then it goes down.
Yes.
So 10 is okay.
Yes. Yeah. Fun and recreation has everything to do with, in your life right now, are you creating spots of time where you're hiking out in the woods, where you're taking a vacation, where you're laying in the bathtub having a sip of wine, whatever it is, are you allowing yourself leisure, rest, rejuvenation? And ultimately, we have pockets of time during our day when we're allowing ourselves that, not just once a month, but how satisfied are you, regardless of your age, stage, role, situation? It is a human need for rest, rejuvenation, fun, recreation, leisure, whatever you want to call it. In the health category, you want to think about health holistically, not just your physical health. Where would you rank yourself in terms of physical, your mental health, your emotional well-being, your cognitive well-being? That's a pretty broad category, but the way that you want to think about it is, if I'm not feeling well physically, chances are that's spilling over into how I feel cognitively, emotionally. If I'm not feeling well emotionally, that's spilling over into my physical health. So it's a pretty comprehensive area, and what we're doing is we're just getting a glimpse of our level of satisfaction at this time. Not what we want it to be, not what it was, but what does it look like right now? Money is a big one. And there are a lot of times when I lead participants through this wheel of life, people tend to get really shy about the money piece. We know that our financial well-being affects our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health. If there are worries and concerns about money, if there is an abundance of money and that's causing worries and concerns, where are you at in terms of your level of satisfaction? Personal growth, again, has everything to do with where you're at in your life right now. A university student might not have as much investment in their own personal growth as someone who is in their mid to late 40s and onward. That said, all human beings at all stages in life do crave at some level growth. Now, the way you want to think about this is, am I allowing myself time in my life at this time to foster personal growth? It's part of why you're here now, that you made the investment to come here to grow. And maybe you want more of that. Maybe you feel, that your cup is full when it comes to personal growth. Physical environment is really critical. This isn't just about my office space or the space of my home. It's my office space and the space of my home and the degree to which it supports me in feeling my best. There are people who will say, I have a beautiful home. I have a stunning home. When I go there, I'm sick because I have a bad marriage, or things are falling apart with my children. Or we have a beautiful home, but we've outgrown it and we're cramped, and so the physical space feels off. So are you on a regular basis in physical spaces that make you feel good, that are supportive and nurturing? And then, of course, there is career. And when you think about career, you don't just want to think about it in terms of the paycheck that I receive, as I'm doing my work, but career in terms of purpose and meaning. I feel like my work has meaning beyond the actual work of it, beyond the paycheck. That a lot of career dissatisfaction is rooted in feeling disengaged from my work, feeling like I'm not living my full potential, feeling like I need to be elsewhere, but I'm sort of enslaved to this situation. So people have different ideas. Now, if you're not currently working professionally, there's other kinds of work that you might do in the world. Okay, so that counts as well. So when you look at your wheel, now you want to connect the lines. Significant other is going to be your level of satisfaction when it comes to intimacy, love, close relationship. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, right. Yes. And so answer honestly. It might even not even rate on the scale, right? But these are all things that can change. So when you have connected all the lines,
Okay.
yeah, you're going to connect them. Yeah. So you would just make a line here, a
Oh,
line
okay.
here. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're going to get an image. This is really a tool in self-awareness. It's a tool in self-awareness in the sense that I need to be aware that I have all these pieces of my life that need tending to. And not tending to them is going to create problems in all areas of my life. When you look at the wheel, here's the question you ask. If that was the wheel on my car, how far will I get? Can I even get out of the parking lot? Would I be banned from driving? Might I get a mile down the road? Take a look at the wheel. Okay? Now, I've never ever met a person in any of the times that I've done this with people that has a perfectly round wheel, right? No, but there are people who have smoother edges that would get a mile or two. Most people are not going to leave the parking lot. So the question you want to ask is, what do I need to do to kind of smooth the edges so that maybe 3 months from now, this wheel looks a little bit more drivable? Because here's the way you want to think about it metaphorically. I need to get from point A to point B in my life. I am not going to get where I want to go on a wheel that looks like that. So this is self-awareness and self-care, and my general advice about using the wheel in a way that really makes a difference is to ask yourself in your lowest categories, what can I do tomorrow? What one small thing can I do tomorrow? Let's say I ranked at a 2 in finances. Maybe the small thing that I can do tomorrow is actually balance my checkbook. Maybe the one small thing I can do tomorrow is actually open the heap of bills that I've been avoiding, right? Students are funny with this. They'll say, the one small thing I can do later today is I'm not going to my next class, I'm going to a movie, right? Right? So, and then take it further. What can I do within the next week, the next month? What can I do within the next 3 months, 6 months? What do I want this area of my life to look like in 1 year? But always start with, what small change can I make tomorrow? Because if you don't start there, you won't make reference to this again. It just seems too big. This is a self-awareness tool. Again, it's interesting to do this same exercise in 3 months or 6 months. There's a coactivecoaching.com here at the bottom, leads you to a website where you can download this for free. If for some reason you can't find it, reach out to us. In fact, before you leave, we can give you a couple copies because I have some more copies in this folder. File it. I keep mine in a folder, and I've been using this for many years. This is a great coaching tool if you do any kind of coaching. Again, a really effective leader is going to be concerned about the degree to which those I'm leading are self-leading in their own lives. Remember, in the context of our work here today, we're talking about self-leadership. 101, step 1 is, how well am I doing managing my own life? The question I usually ask when I don't have time to lead a group through the wheel is, if you stepped back and asked yourself this question, you would ask, would I promote myself? Would I demote myself? Would I fire myself as the leader of my own life? Now, if you wanted to extend this out a little bit further, these are just some other areas you could look at. You could look at your cognitive well-being, Am I taking care of my mind? And by cognitive, cognitive is different from emotional. Cognitive is really about, am I taking care of my capacity to have memory, my capacity to be able to work from both sides of my brain, my brain agility, basically, brain flexibility. Am I working in tangible ways to get myself out of brain fog? Well, many of these things actually are on the wheel. Creativity is really important. Creativity is as important as fostering time for leisure and restoration. Does anyone know at what age approximately children begin to really diminish their capacity for creativity or back away from it? Actually, a better question is, what grade in the United States? Third. Third grade. Does anyone know why third grade is sort of that magical year? There's something that happens typically in third grade. That starts to get really emphasized. Your kids might be learning their times tables in second grade or even to some degree in first grade, but third grade math gets exponentially more difficult. And we start to see, unless your child is in a really exceptionally savvy school that knows about brain development and really is concerned about this third grade year is the year where you start to see, oh, I didn't get the painted mug for Mother's Day. You know, you're not seeing the coloring pictures coming home in their folders. You're seeing less of that. You might see things like those dioramas that the kids would create. They drove me crazy. You might see things like that, but usually something was very tied to the creation of the diorama, a grade. That's very different. Free creativity that's not attached to a particular outcome is where this starts to wane. And what we know about human beings, we are born innately creative. If you don't believe me, watch a toddler figure something out. Watch a toddler take a box and do something really creative with it, something that we would never, they see differently. We don't see the way that they do, because to some degree we're shut down. When my niece Emma, what did she take? She took a pair of underwear and she made it into a sports bra. Like, we couldn't figure out how she did that. She took her brother's t-shirt and started sewing skirts. And we can't figure out, because she sees something that we can't. She has different eyes. We can regain our capacity for creativity, and it's important that we do, especially if we're leaders. But it has to be cultivated, and it has to be worked on. This is one of the reasons why I had a big resistance to adult coloring books when they came onto the scene. I just thought, this is mindful coloring. And so many people, I have so many adult coloring books. So many people gave them to me as presents. And so one night, I remember a few years ago, I poured a glass of wine, I sat down and I started coloring. And I remembered. I loved coloring with my kids. It was so relaxing. And then I remembered how much I loved coloring as a child. It was so relaxing. And so the times now when I color, it's not just relaxing. My mind settles to the degree that I usually get some of my biggest insights. So whatever it is in you, and sometimes it's just go back to when you were 8 and ask, what did I love? How did I love to move my body? What things did I love to engage in? What was the nature of my imagination? What was I thinking about? What was I dreaming about when I was 8? Because the seeds, a lot of the seeds of who you are and who you've become were there. And they were just starting. They were just starting to bloom. Okay. Let's see, I want to move ahead here into growth mindset. A lot of literature on growth mindset as opposed to fixed mindset. This is really important, not just in who we are as adults and as individuals who are leading or might be stepping into leadership positions. Really important that we are communicating with and engaged with younger people in terms of making a distinction between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. And so some of those special qualities of a growth mindset, I value my mistakes. Like you might have lost the investment, don't lose the lesson. I like to use the example of some of the top innovators in our history. They knew this. They were like, bring it on. I want to screw up because the more I screw up, the better this product will be. The man who created the Dyson vacuum. 1,500 protocols of the Dyson before he figured out what the one thing was that was going to make the Dyson the Dyson. And he's never stopped asking the question. Once I create the Dyson, what's next? How can I rethink a curling iron? How can I rethink washing hands? Like, these are all the things that Dyson now has as part of their product. Valuing mistakes. Strength in reframing. I could teach about reframing for a day. Reframing in any given moment. When I'm stuck, how can I think about this differently? How can I see this differently? There's a fixed way in which I'm seeing this that keeps me stuck. High capacity for micro and macro visioning. I can see I need to take steps 1 through 5 to get to where I need to go. But those steps 1 through 5 are connected to a much greater vision. Listens more than talks. This is probably the quality of the most exceptional leadership. The leader who listens more than talks and understands how critical this is. And again, connected to that, practicing conscious, intentional communication so that I'm not wasting words. This is a wonderful graphic of what the fixed and growth mindset looks like. Growth mindset. Think about who you know that has a growth mindset. Tess. That's who I think of. I like to try new things, right? I can learn to do what I want. I can learn to do whatever I want. My failures offer opportunity and growth. My intelligence can be developed. I am not just this level of intelligence. My intelligence can be developed. I embrace challenges. I learn from feedback. I don't shut down. I keep trying. Don't give up. I'm inspired by other people's success. It's a really big one. Let everybody succeed. There's enough to go around. That inspires me. You will get so stuck if you are threatened by the success of others. It is a major sabotaging thought process. My mistakes help me grow. I know this is going to help me even though it's difficult. I know that I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel yet, but I know that I'm going to, when I get beyond this, this is going to mean something to me. This is where most of us are. I give up easily. My potential is predetermined. Failure is the limit of my abilities. Intelligence is static. I avoid challenges. We get to an age where we start avoiding challenges. Like your daughter reminds me of, she still has just in the way she self-presents, she's got the vitality of the growth mindset. I stick to what I know. Feedback and criticism are personal. I will never improve. I'm either good at it or I'm not. That will really keep you stuck. There's no point in trying. You can hear in the way that a person talks about their life, their circumstance, their situation. You can hear in the language they use and in their affect whether they're living from a growth or a fixed mindset. Really important as leaders to model growth mindset, as parents to model growth mindset, as teachers to model growth mindset. Growth mindset is very contagious. It's very captivating when you're in the presence of someone who lives from that place. Really important quality of the mindful, transformative leader is the individual who is exceptional at what we call, or what are deemed, the soft skills. This is one of my pet peeves, right? The words that we see along the periphery of the image are considered soft skills in our culture. They are essential skills. You may have high technical skills, but if you don't have essential skills, forget about it. The ability to collaborate, the capacity for critical thinking, having a strong work ethic, confidence, of course, communication, a capacity for creativity, time management, and grit. You know, I love the word grit because there's something about it that's very evocative. We could possibly use the word resilience here, but grit, like,
Says it all.
when you were taken down, what got you up? What got you up?
That would have been fun to have this morning. I was at a educational meeting. I'm on the board of a university, and so we were talking about a particular, we were talking about healthcare management and courses and things, and then we do a conference every year. And so we tend to do this conference on, healthcare is changing, it's IT, and it's all this. And one of the speakers we're thinking about, and we are going to reach out, is someone that's doing exactly that. Not the technical side, but and I did call it soft skills. I said, you have to learn to think critically to be able to make decisions over a broad scope of responsibilities and things. And so it's really interesting, and I agree. This is very
Yeah, every year I go out to Misericordia and I work with their graduating PT students. And it's interesting because the professors that bring me out, they'll refer to me as, we really, really need for them to get experience in their soft skills. And so when I was out there recently, I said, we're not calling them soft skills anymore. These are essential skills. And one of the points I was making was, your hands are healing, clearly. You're doing the work of occupational and physical therapy. But if you're not able to heal in the context of the relationship you're creating with your patient, your hands are never going to be enough. And creating that relationship with that patient has everything to do with your capacity to engage with them interpersonally in really powerful ways. So let's not call these soft skills. These are absolutely essential to them moving forward in their lives as physical therapists that need to rely more on just what their hands are doing.
Exactly.
And now more than ever, because of the focus that's been on technology and cutting costs and streamlining and people, and because of just technology in general, what we see all the time across industries is that people lose the ability to communicate.
That
Yeah.
was exactly the point, and it was, I'm on the board of Misericordia.
Oh.
So we were really talking about business degrees and management degrees. But for the seminar, I think we need, because much of Misericordia is between social work and nursing and PT, OT, all, and it's healthcare, in a general perspective, that we have to talk about the people we're talking to, who
Right.
Because it is working with those patients, it is working. How do you can't think critically and know where all the pieces are to get to that, to help that patient, because it may not just be the physical therapy, it may be several disciplines that are trying to work together. And so, it just makes a whole lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah.
So really need to.
We are seeing that shift though.
Yeah.
I think we are.
Consistently.
Yeah.
People are getting kind of tired of and bored with just the mechanical component.
Yeah, and it's really shocking to run them through exercises where they actually have to experiment with how to create touch through a handshake, when that's going to be your very first point of contact with your patient, and how to pair that with eye contact, and how to make and sustain eye contact. And how do I talk to you in such a way when we're spending an hour together that we can create common threads of experience if I'm 25 years old and you're 65? How do you find avenues for connection in that way? And it opens them up to this understanding that, yeah, these are not soft skills. These are going to be very essential to me being successful at the work that I'm doing. And this year, what I really tried to emphasize was, it's quite possibly that your relationship with this client will play a more significant role in their healing than the actual physical therapy.
Oh, the studies have been done for cancer patients and patients that hospice has been successful because of the relationship component.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
You forget you're dealing with human beings.
Yes.
We all
Yes.
need to be touched, and we all need to have that some relationship. And we got away from that.
And then in the PT world and occupational therapy world, patient compliance. If I engage you in a certain way, it's more likely that between now and the next time I see you, you will have done the exercises, just things like that. But I think also increasingly in the medical profession in general is the quotas that doctors need to reach and the time they're allowed to spend with clients. If I only have 15 minutes with you, which is about the amount of time they have, or you risk getting fired, truly getting fired, how can I engage you in that 15 minutes in a compelling manner? Today I heard this interesting phrase, which I thought was brilliant. It was, I need for you to hear that I'm listening to you. I need for you to hear through all of who I am, my presence and my nonverbals. I need for you to hear that communicating loudly to you that I'm listening to you. That's a very powerful form of listening, which is hard to do when I've got 15 minutes with you. And we've all had those experiences where we leave feeling unheard and unseen because the doctor was behind the laptop. But they have to be behind the laptop. So it's like, well, I have to learn how to type and look at you at the same time. But then I feel rushed because of the typing.
And then what's really interesting to me is that ripples out so dramatically in the relational aspects of the coworkers and peers, and especially among nurses, especially in high touch specialties like hospice, for instance, where they're in that job because they're passionate about it, and then they can't relate to each other. So they that compassion fatigue we talk about all the time.
Yeah, and that exhaustion and the stress, and then that reactivity that it causes puts me in a position where you're my colleague as a nurse and I'm mean to you. Nurse bullying, the literature on that is, you would just never believe it.
So, anyway, very interesting.
Yeah, so, and then finally, the philosophy, and I know that we're probably, I don't even know where we're at in terms of time.
We have a half hour.
Okay. Again, thinking about what is my approach to leadership grounded in? So if I had to isolate 3 things that I thought were good takeaways for you. Is your leadership philosophy such that you believe that I can best inspire, encourage, and motivate if I have an understanding of what your special needs are as a team member? And I'll talk about that in a second. How do I get to need? Can I read you well enough? Can I read you well enough to know that when I'm leading Kathy, inspiring, encouraging, I know that she really responds to affirmation, that she really responds to challenge. And the work that Daniel Pink produced on human motivation, I think is brilliant, and it's very easy. What I tell you right now, you don't have to read the book, you don't have to watch his TED Talks unless you want to go deeper into it. But basically, and this is probably one of the most contemporary studies done on human motivation, what really lights the fire under someone's butt, to move forward and gives them the courage to move forward. And he narrowed it down to 3 things. So as a leader, he argues that human beings have a natural need, a strong need for a sense of autonomy, a sense of mastery, and a sense of purpose. The autonomy piece is really important, and a mindful leader understands this. This is the leader that's going to lead from behind and successfully. The mindful leader knows that I will derive some of the best potential from those I'm leading if I free up the reins, if I allow them to make decisions without scaring them that there's going to be some sort of consequence or retribution. I can't tell you how many organizations I've gone into where executive teams have said to me, this is our biggest problem and we want you to help us resolve it. We want our management team to start making decisions without having to run anything by us. Like, we're just getting sick of having to approve things or give them feedback. They are afraid to take risks and make their own decisions. That says everything about the corporate culture. That's not about the managers, right? It's not like they all came in naturally, unwilling to make decisions. The first question I'll ask is, how are you communicating with them? And are you communicating with them in such a way that they don't believe that they have a little bit of wiggle room? Now, we don't want them, we don't want to give free rein, but I want to know as a human being that when I'm not in your presence, I can make a decision, and that the decision that I make is for the good of the team or the good of the company. And you will see people really start to flourish if you give them some autonomy. Mastery. And this goes back to maybe how we come in. When you see this in children, the desire to be really good at something. Can I read you enough? Have I paid attention to you enough? Am I present to you enough as somebody that I'm leading to know she is excellent when it comes to visioning, when it comes to keeping this boat aligned with our corporate goals? And I am going to tell her that often. I'm going to do whatever I can to encourage her growth in that area so that she or he feels masterful at that. This is our go-to person on this team for, the organization of the front office, whatever it is. But this is time intensive for the leader. I've spent enough time with you to know these are her gift skills. This is what she's best at. I'm going to lift them up. Much like you would a child. Like, I'm going to create as many opportunities as possible for this person to flourish in this area. This doesn't mean that I don't have an awareness of the things they're not so great at and want to sort of bring them up in those areas too. But we love the experience of mastery. I've mastered that, or I'm in the process of mastering that. We feel a great deal of pride in that, and prideful about our work. And then purpose. Why am I doing this in the first place? what's the goal here? Are we all on the same boat heading in the same direction? Sometimes when I go into an organization and there's a lot of conflict between executive team and management team, it's because they've forgotten why they're there. They have forgotten what the mission is. And sometimes it requires going to the website and coming in and saying, I want to remind you about what you say the mission is of this company. We do some work at Sundance Vacation. I love their mission statement. It is to provide affordable vacation to as many people as possible, something along those lines. When you get employees to understand, as I said in the Wheel of Life, how critical leisure is to our well-being, how critical vacations are to our well-being, and my job is to help as many people as possible to enjoy what feels like a luxury vacation very affordably, I can get on board with that. And even in the humdrum, mundane nature of my everyday work life, I often need to be reminded of that. Is everybody connected to purpose? If I work in a financial institution at any level of the institution, do I understand that on a daily basis, in some way, shape, or form, I contribute to someone's financial well-being? And how critical money is to our daily lives. If I understand that, and I'm reminded of it often enough, that motivates me to do my best work. So, does your philosophy of leadership, is this part of it? That you understand what best motivates what best motivates me? Sometimes as a leader, I have forgotten why I'm doing what I'm doing. And then finally, motivates from what I call the 5 S's. And these can be game changers. If you work with people and you want to create an environment where they're performing at the optimal level, put these in your back pocket. Because these are qualities that help you to shape a culture from which they can perform at the optimal level. And this basically speaks to needs that we all have. First and foremost, it all begins here, safety. Am I safe here? Am I safe in this organization? Am I safe as part of this group or team? Am I safe in this interaction with the person I need to report to? Safety implies trust. The culture of any organization, if trust is not established and is not at its foundation, will never ever even get close to maximizing its potential. They will just stumble along. If trust has been compromised in any way and not repaired, they will just stumble along. We saw this happen, for example, we see this happening at Wells Fargo. And the major issue, they are clamoring to reestablish a sense of safety and trust, not only within their organization, but to win back the trust of their clients and potential clients. That's a lot of inner work. Significance, am I valued here? You will never ever get maximum potential from anyone you're leading if they do not feel and understand the way in which they're valued, what their contribution is. This does not mean that you have to run around massaging their shoulders or massaging their feelings, but they have an understanding that if I left the team, there would be something qualitatively different. My absence is just as important as my presence. Something would shift here. Support, am I supported here? Support might look like, yeah, okay, you told me that I have some autonomy, that I should feel free and okay about taking some risks. Do I have support for that if it doesn't go the way that we hoped it would? Or, am I going to feel abandoned and pushed out? Solidarity, do I feel part of? And this is why events where organizations celebrate together, they engage in leisure activities together. They really work hard, not all the time, but they work hard so that people, for example, let's say it's here, I work at Westmoreland Club. I'm part of the Westmoreland team. That I have part of my identity is connected to that. And then success, can I succeed here? All of these things will affect retention too in a very big way. If I don't feel safe, don't feel valued, don't feel supported, I do not feel like I'm part of a team, and I don't feel like it's a place I can succeed, I am looking for another job. And I'm not going to be engaged in the work, I'm not going to be engaged with my colleagues. You can apply the 5 S's to almost any relational situation. You can apply the 5 S's to family life. You can apply the 5 S's to the context of an intimate relationship. This is what I have found over the course of my life teaching content. These 5, that's why I call them the 5 S's, come up over and over and over again as top human needs. So if I feel as a leader, I'm present enough to understand something's going on with Kathy. I can sit down with her and I can talk with her, and I don't have to say, Kathy, we're going through the 5 S's. Do you feel safe here? Right? But I can tell just by how I'm engaging with her, she doesn't feel supported. What's really great, and this is something that happened in our work at Sundance, is many of the managers went back to their teams after going through a similar training, and they introduced this. So now they talk about the 5 S's, and they'll say, you know what? I don't feel that there's solidarity right now. This meeting just went in the ditch, and solidarity has been compromised. So we're not going to accomplish very much. So they get to now speak in the language of these things. That's what it means to start to infuse your culture with a very conscious way of communicating. We're aiming to bring everybody forward. Okay. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. Any questions about that? No. Okay. All right. So I want to end where I wanted to start, with this image before we go. This is how I often feel when I'm overwhelmed, when there's a lot of anxiety, sometimes a lot of resistance to something, when I feel adrift or stuck and really need to anchor. And I like this image because I love the notion of anchoring. I was driving the other day and I received a phone call that really shook me up. And I thought to myself, I probably shouldn't be driving given what I just heard, but I had to drive. So the first thing I did was I anchored through my feet. Even though I was driving, I went right to my feet. My feet are a really significant anchor for me. And so as a mindfulness strategy, I want to end by taking you through a guided mindfulness experience where we're just going to explore 4 anchors in about a 3 to 5 minute period of time. I think we have time, right?
Yep.
And then before we go, I'll just be curious to know which anchor felt best for you. Okay. I think I might ask them to turn the music down. Do we have control? Oh, okay, good. Any questions about anything you saw or heard? Yeah.
Are you going to give some sort of one-day retreat
Are we?
on this subject? 'Cause I'll show you my wheel.
Oh, mm-hmm. I caught a glimpse of it.
I thought if anyone understands.
Yes. I don't know, maybe down the road. Kathy was asking if we would be ever giving a one-day retreat on content like this.
Yeah. I'm
Mhm.
totally open to that.
Yeah.
I think we've been kind of thinking of something like that for the end of this year or next spring, because of course we're a young company and just
Right.
having enough people to fill it
Yeah.
is always the worry.
Mhm.
So, but yeah, I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think what you're saying is, for example, you could go into the wheel in more depth.
Right.
There's another exercise that I use that's similar to the wheel. It kind of brings you to the same conclusion. It's called the whole health Karen. If you ever see those stones in the wilderness, the Karens, right? And each of the stone is representative of a part of your life. There's actually more parts than what's on the wheel. But the whole idea is if one of those stones is compromised, that thing falls apart. It's really amazing when you see them in the
That's
wilderness.
Really good.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, yeah. We'll
Yeah.
absolutely keep you posted. Yeah.
All right, so let's take our seat. And if you feel comfortable closing your eyes, if not, you can just sort of keep your gaze soft and quiet, maybe looking forward and down. Maybe in the first few moments, just allowing the shoulders to drop. And maybe allowing them to come back just a little bit, opening up some freedom in the chest and the heart. And I'd like to invite you to take your awareness down to your feet. And just experience the sensation of your feet against the floor. Maybe noticing the weight of your feet. Or anything that you're wearing, your socks or your shoes, and the sensation of those things against the feet. And then very gently guiding your awareness to your spine. To the length and the strength of your spine. The spine that holds you up, keeps you up. And maybe even allowing yourselves to rest and to settle back into the support of this spine that's always with you. And gently guide your awareness to your own breath. And just as it is, Noticing the sensation of your breath as you inhale. And then as you exhale. And gently guide your awareness to your heart. Perhaps connecting to the awe and the mystery of your beating heart. And the awe and the mystery of your emotional heart. And for the last few moments, I invite you to just place the hands over your heart. Feeling the weight and the warmth of these hands. The feet, the spine, the breath, the heart. Always with you, constant companions. Reliable anchors. Whenever you're ready, but only when you're ready, open your eyes. So when I feel tossed about, adrift, unanchored, again in an emergency situation like the one I'm describing, I feel like I'm like this all over. My energies are just scattered, scattered, scattered. So my goal is bringing myself back here. And I know always that I have 4 reliable anchors: my feet, my spine, my heart, my breath. They're with me all the time. So they're easy places to go when you want to call yourself back to yourself. So I wanted to just visit those places in that brief meditation, and I'm just curious as to which felt the most anchoring for you.
I think there were 2.
Mhm.
Putting my hand on my heart, the yoga class that you did.
Mhm.
I think you did the chakra with the heart.
Oh yeah, you were there.
connection to the
Mhm.
brain.
Yeah.
I found that just so soothing.
Mhm.
And breath as well. because
Mhm.
it kind of forces your entire body to just
Mhm.
calm down. It slows everything down, every single system.
Yeah, yeah. You know, what's interesting about the heart, that one sometimes is hard to visualize because we can't feel it viscerally. Um, but you'll often notice when people get bad news or something shocking happens, many of us do this automatically. And this is pretty much a universal gesture that means the same thing, like, oh, that kind of took my breath away. Oh, it's very primitive in nature because a threat has just occurred, something upsetting has just occurred. I'm protecting this. And it also can be very grounding. Mhm. So I never hesitate. I don't care where I am at this point or what I'm doing. If I need to do this, I do this.
It's very self-soothing. There's studies from Kristen Neff on how when we don't feel comfortable with compassion or self-compassion, or if we're dealing with shame or guilt, those types of really tough emotions that we all have, just placing the hand on the heart is very soothing to the entire system. Yeah.
I agree, yeah. That's
What anchor did you most respond?
I did the same thing, even though you could feel the rest and it does, very soothing, but and I tend to do that, I tend to put my hand
Mm-hmm.
on the
Yeah. I know some people who this is so meaningful to them that they will often wear a pendant that hangs about here. And sometimes what they do is they'll just reach up
Yeah,
to the pendant, and the mere reaching up for the pendant is
right.
their way of, yeah.
That's interesting.
So, yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you.
Very much.
This was
Yeah.
lovely.
Thank you.
I hope you got something out of it, and
Mhm.
certainly, just reach out to us, and we'll keep in touch. You could sign up for our newsletter
Okay.
on our website,
On that side.
right? If you